Windows Server patching and updating is another great way to secure your virtual machines that is sometimes overlooked. We can perform Windows updates in several ways. We can go through the control panel, which is super easy but bandwidth consuming and potentially can cause application conflicts. So what that means is that if everybody's going out to Windows updates through their control panel icon, then what's going to happen is that all of the bandwidth is going to be used up when everybody goes out at the same time when automatic updates kicks in. Even if you do manual updates where you have it set to download but then install when you want to, is also an easy way to do it, but it's very time consuming and you may get updates that you don't want. Another way would be Windows Server Update Service. It is more complex to set up, but then again, it's a lot easier to keep everyone updated. And it also allows you to keep people from getting updates they shouldn't get that might cause application conflicts. Let's talk about how to install Windows Server Update Services. We need to go to the Server Manager where we add roles and features, and then we need to edit group policy to decide who is going to get the Windows Server Update Services. You may decide that not everyone in the company should get them, as some people who work remotely a lot may do better just getting the updates on their own. Managing updates in WSUS Manager, we go in, we configure groups, we approve updates and removals in WSUS Manager. So not only can you approve updates, but if some updates cause the computer problems, we can then remove those updates as well. We can also reject updates so they never get installed if we never want those particular updates to happen. I've had many times where Windows updates causes a computer or a server to crash or just not work properly. So it's a great idea to have a sandbox server and workstations where you can run these updates with your applications installed, and then you can find out if they're going to cause any problems before you push them out to production computers. Let's go into our domain controller, which is also a virtual machine. And from here, we're going to install the Windows Server Update Services. So we'll log in and then go to our Server Manager where we can install the role, which will allow us to have Windows Server Update Services to run. So we'll click on the Add Roles and Features. And make sure our server is selected, which it is. And then we'll click on Windows Server Update Services. Make sure you go ahead and add the features that are required to make it work. Click Next, Next. And now the installation is about to start. So first off, what we need to do is to tell the server where we want the updates to go. So you want to make sure you have plenty of storage available in that particular folder. And we're going to skip past roles and go to our installation. Installation of WSUS could take anywhere from a few minutes to much longer, just depending on the speed of your server. While we're waiting, we'll go ahead and close this particular window, and we'll open up Group Policy. In Group Policy, we'll go ahead and create a new group policy and link it here, and we'll call it WSUS. Click OK. And now we'll go ahead and edit the policy. From here, we'll go to Computer Configuration, Policies, Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Windows. Let's go ahead and expand that. Update. From here, we'll click on Specify Internet Microsoft Update Service Location. Click Enabled. And then we're going to put in the IP address of our server. Now, we want to put in http:// And instead of the IP address, rather, we're going to put in the name of the server, which is going to be dc2.widget.internal. But then we need to put in the port number. Now, by default, it's going to use port number 8530. So let's go ahead and put in :8530. You can always go and check your Internet Information Services to check what port it's going to be using. Let's go ahead and use the same information for our statistics server, which gives us information on what's been applied. We'll click Apply and we'll click OK. We also want to scroll back up and click on Configure Automatic Updates, and we'll enable that policy. And it gives us several options that you already see when you're in your control panel, so these look very familiar. And we'll say to auto download and schedule the installation, although you can choose any one of those. And you can also check the box that says install during automatic maintenance, and you can tell it how often it checks. So by default, we'll just leave it at 3 o'clock in the morning every day. When we're done, we'll go ahead and click Apply and OK. And now that's all set up on our domain controller, we'll go ahead and minimize that, and we'll have to make sure that we have a computer that is joined to the domain. So we'll right click on our virtual machine, which is Windows 10, and connect, and we'll want to make sure that that is logged in and ready to go. So we'll click on Other User, and in this case we'll log in to Widget, and we'll log in as the administrator. So what we're going to do with this computer is we're going to join it to a group in Windows Server Update Services so it can take control of this computer for the Windows updates. So we'll go ahead and minimize that, and we'll go back into our DC2. Now we need to go to Tools, and we should see a new option we haven't seen before, which is Windows Server Update Services. And it's just checking to make sure we want to keep it in this particular folder, which we do. And we're going to see a little wizard come up, help us configure it. And our initial installation is complete. Let's go ahead and run through the wizard. And we'll just uncheck the improvement program. We can synchronize with Microsoft Update, or if we have another WSUS server, we can choose where that is as well. We only have the one server, so we'll just continue. We don't have a proxy server, so let's just click Next, and we'll click Start Connecting to check out the updates. Now, just as a warning, this could take an awful long time. So if you want to configure your server now and connect later, just click on Stop Connecting, and then it'll just take you right on into the manager. So we're in our manager, and here is DC2 as our server, and we can see there's our updates. We haven't quite gotten all the updates going yet because we stopped it in midstream. And there's our computers, which we don't have any of yet. Let's go ahead and click on Search so we can try to add our computer into the group so we can control the updates. And we know the name of the computer is called Client 1, so we'll click Find Now. It found it. And now it's going ahead and installing the reporting software and taking control of the Windows updates. Let's go ahead and close our report. And when we go back to our All Computers, we can now see our computer is listed. We can go to a status report if we want. If we want, we can go over to our client computer, and we can see in the settings area that we now have a message that says some settings are hidden or managed by your organization. So this shows you that this computer is being managed by a WSUS server. Once the client computer is added into the All Computers and we download all of our updates, we can then apply those updates if we choose to, or ignore them and not install them. You can also add a downstream server if you want, where you can have a server where you can push those updates to that particular device, and then it can install updates to computers in its location. So you can have multiple upload and download servers in your organization, depending on how large you are. Although we won't go into all the details of how to run the Windows Server Update Services server, that gives you a good idea with the installation, the adding of the computer, and the going to get the updates from Microsoft. We also discussed how to set up group policies, so that way it can be pushed out to the client, and then WSUS can control that computer going forward. During the installation, you may get prompted to also add a report viewer or a CLS program. It will prompt you and send you a link to that location should that occur. Properly updating and patching your server with Windows updates and WSUS will keep your security updates current and your network safer from malware and attacks.